This is the third time I'm trying to make this video, and I'm giving up on what I had planned for tonight because apparently technology is completely not on my side. I am at home. My name is Darren Calhoun. I'm in Chicago. It's June 1st. I'm hearing explosions of some sort, most likely fireworks outside, sirens every few minutes. The world is on fire, and here we are. So hi, hopefully I can see comments this time, but things have dropped off several times now. Matt has faithfully shown up every time I've gone back on live. Thank you so much for that. Um, Hopefully Alan will come in here too. Hey Marcus, hey Tim. Um, Yeah, so we are talking about stuff that's going on in the world, and I think many of us are up late trying to just be okay, right? And I've had a lot of thoughts, and I'm gonna make a more polished video of this a little bit later, but I'll just share what's been on my mind. I've been pretty frustrated today. I have had a really full, really good day. Lots and lots of things going on. Church was good, and hung out with some of my fellow administrators in one of my Facebook groups. And we had a special rainbow themed prayer around Pentecost. And Pentecost is in the Bible where the Holy Spirit descends on the followers of Jesus, and they are empowered, right? And so I've been thinking about that. That's kind of why I'm wearing red, because it symbolizes the power of the Holy Spirit. And that fire is so timely because the world is, like I said, it's on fire. People are protesting and rioting and looting, and all these things are happening simultaneously while police are continuing to be as aggressive as ever toward people who are very literally fed up with what's happening in the world. And so I've been frustrated, and the way that I kind of try to make sense of the world is, or not even make sense of the world, but the way I try to feel safe in the world is to try to help. That's just kind of how I'm wired. And since I do have this background in grassroots community organizing and firsthand experience with it, I thought I'd share some more of my insights. One of the things before my video got cut off in the previous version of this, and like I said, I'll make a nicer video later. One of the things that is important to remember is that how we get here comes from someplace. And I was sharing a Martin Luther King quote where he said essentially he was saying these long winters of delay and not yet, and we'll wait till you get the outcome, and let's wait for justice to be served and so forth. Those long winters of delay are what create the summers of revolt. And so when you think about what that means, let's look at how we got to today. So somewhere back in the day, now somebody's trying to call me, of course, while I'm on live. Hopefully, okay, I'm still on live. Yay. So back in the day, we had all kinds of efforts that were peaceful protests, right? We saw how Martin Luther King and the entire civil rights movement, because it was not just his baby, we saw how they adapted the principles of nonviolent resistance, and how several things collided to make that something that people paid attention to. Historically speaking, it was when, for the first time, we were seeing things on TV as they happened. So before then, things were mostly described after the fact, whether that's what was happening with the war or just having pictures and so forth, things having a delay. But TV was coming of age at that point, and so it was the first time that people could see real time folks getting dogs sicked on them, or getting hosed down, or seeing children being arrested for a protest. And so that galvanized people, that like kind of shocked people, and it wasn't just this intellectual thing. They saw something that they kind of didn't feel okay with when they were watching people bleeding for nonviolent protest. And so the technology of the time intersected with the struggle that had been going on for years and years and years. And so it caused people to take action in ways they had not taken before. If we fast forward a bit, let's just jump to 2016. And you have Colin Kaepernick kneeling during football games, and where he is, again, adapting this value of peaceful protest. People are outraged that he would dare do anything. Like, they derailed it and made it about the flag. They made it about the military. They made it about all kinds of things that he never said and never did. But that same thing where it's, no, you're not doing it right. You're not protesting right. You're not, no, 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 no. Police brutality is not that bad. Racism's not really a thing. You're wrong. And so once again, there was that delay. But technology continues to be this thing that's a galvanizing force. Now that everyone has a device in their hand that has a camera on it, we're seeing the murder happen real time, not just the responses to it, but we're seeing, like in George's case, we're seeing him die on camera real time. And once again, it's galvanized people around this thing of, we have to do something. But let's look at what else has been happening. Right now we're in 2020, but in the end of 2019, we already knew that in China there was a virus, COVID-19, and we treated it like the Chinese thing. We kind of put it off and said, oh, that's over there, and oh, that's bad, and maybe it's going to be like SARS, maybe it's going to be like Ebola. But we did that, and we did the thing that we as Americans usually do. We make everything else in the world completely non-important, and instead we just focus on ourselves. And so instead of Trump being proactive about what was happening and engaging truthfully about it, we have these timelines of him saying, oh, 4 or 5 people have it. Oh, it's not a big thing. Oh, it's going to go away. Once the summer hits, it's going to be all gone. He's saying all these things to kind of minimize it. But the senators had been briefed on it via the CIA, and they instead took their money out of stocks because they knew how our country would be affected. And this is months ago. We also have large business owners like the Waltons, the owners of Walmart, who took their money out of the country months ago. And so the people with power to make these kind of direct, informed decisions did their own thing. I think we'll eventually have it confirmed that Trump wanted to keep his election possibilities. So he made sure that we didn't have testing. He made sure that we didn't have active and proactive response to this, because if he didn't want something that would look bad on him during an election year. And so we have these delays, right? And then the virus does get into the US, and it does start to affect people in very large numbers, and we have to do something that is drastic. Otherwise, it's going to just wipe us out. And so now we have to do this reactionary, shut down the whole country, shut down work. People are immediately unemployed. People are immediately affected. And we're not the only places. This is happening all over the world. But other countries did a proactive take, and they said, okay, well, we'll freeze rent. We'll freeze mortgages. We will make sure that people have monthly income so that we can manage this well. And the United States did not do that, even though all the other developed countries did. And those countries also have things like healthcare. And so now we're in a situation where the unending violence against Black people has continued. And now we have this pandemic where people are not getting very much information, and people are not being protected by the powers that be. And so now people are being affected. They're told to stay home, but they're not really given consistent information. They're told they can't do this and they can't do that, but no one really knows what's going on, and we're still trying to figure it out. And now they're told they can't go to work, and they can't have child care, and kids can't go to school, but we don't know when you'll be able to do it. So now everybody's at home and everybody's upset. And one thing that we know for sure is that riots start when people have food insecurity, when people have racial tension, when people have political or religious division. And so one of the things that we've seen for this virus is that, one, because of our healthcare inequities, Black and brown people are the main people dying from this disease. So now you have a racial component to it, right? And then you're also seeing that rich people get the disease and they get tests when no one else has access to it. So now you got a class kind of thing happening where some people can get a test and some people can be tested even though they're asymptomatic, even though other people are symptomatic and coughing up a lung and dying and still being denied tests. So you have more tension. All this is mounting over the last few months, right? Our government still is fighting about things like, oh, well, we're going to deny canceling student loans. We're going to not freeze rents. We're not going to freeze mortgages. We're not going to have a second stimulus check because $1,200 is supposed to last you until when? October? And so now people are like, what is going on? But they're at home because 40 million people are out of work. And then we have all this time to be on the internet and watch real time the injustice that's always been going on. And so now you have injustice happening and everyone's glued to the internet and the TV because we're at home and we can't do anything else, right? And then as usual, nothing happens, or it's delayed justice, these long winters of not yet, right? And so you have people who have been given minimal information, who have been told to trust the government, trust the due process, but also we're going to mess all of that up because, you know, we've never been very efficient. We've never been proactive about caring for, protecting people, or serving justice. And so now you're in the situation where you have this outrageous thing that's consistent with American history, but everyone is in a place where they're already agitated, they're already upset, they're already angry, and there's nothing else for them to do. And so, yes, people immediately take to the streets. They do engage in protests. They do show up and demand justice. But what also happens is there's people who, just like with every other change in our history, if you look up the history of the Ku Klux Klan, it happened at the abolition of enslavement. And it happened because his last name is Forrest. I can't remember his first name, but he was the modern. If you think of a let's say a Cadillac dealer and how they have multiple locations around the country, he was that for slave owning. And he was a slave dealer, and he had slave shops, these beautiful parlors where people could come and have this high quality experience of buying enslaved Africans. And so he couldn't do his business anymore. And so he started the Ku Klux Klan, the domestic terrorism agency, to make sure that people understood that what was his property is still his property. And so again, let's jump back to 2020. And you have people who have now had their livelihoods taken away. And you have people who, if you're white, you've been told your whole life that if you just work hard and that if you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that you're on your way to being a millionaire. But we already talked about how the millionaires said, oh no, this country is about to go down and I'm taking my money out of it. I just heard a report that the top 1% in this country have made $200 billion since the pandemic began. $200 billion to the top 1%. There's still people who don't know how they're going to get unemployment benefits. There's still people who don't know how their business is going to survive. But the top 1% profited $200 billion. And so the people who've been told their whole lives, white men have been told their whole lives that you just have to work hard, and now their jobs are taken away. Now their unemployment is taken away. They don't want to rely on the government. And so they're angry, and they're going to rise up and do whatever they have to do to feel like they're okay. And so those people who have been looking for security, looking for identity, looking to be heard, are on the internet, which is why if you look up white supremacist tactics, they have capitalized on the internet. They find people who are lonely, who are angry, and they say, hey, we got your back. And so those people are organized, and they have traditionally, and you can research this, you have people who have been copying the tactics of grassroots organizers like Occupy Wall Street movement. They copied that. Like Black Lives Matter, they copied those techniques, even down to having graphics. We saw in the last election that Russian interference was making fake Black Lives Matter pages. We see in this time right now that there are fake Black Lives Matter protests that are not organized by anybody associated with Black Lives Matter or any local organizing efforts where people actually know who's organizing it. And so they've been infiltrating peaceful protests and showing up and causing destruction and causing rioting. Some people are saying, oh, it's Antifa. That doesn't make sense, because a fascist regime is we're resisting fascism. So having the anti-fascists do it does not make sense. Now, could I be wrong? Sure. But again, there's a history and there's consistency, and Antifa doesn't make sense. But we do have a long history of white nationalists getting, oh, there's good people on both sides. We have no white nationalists who have worked in the White House. We have a president who keeps quoting white nationalist things like America First, who keeps quoting things like the looting starts and the shooting starts, who quotes things that are direct references to past events that have been rallying cries and dog whistles for white nationalists. And so those folks are getting riled up, and they're like, this is our time. They've been wanting a civil war for quite some time. They've named it. The shooter who shot the church over on the East Coast, he said he wanted to start a civil war. People who are defending the Second Amendment are saying we need to defend ourselves against this government. This has not been a secret. This has not been hidden. And so now there's an opportunity where everyone's out of work. Everyone's angry. Everyone's at home with nothing else to do but to show up and tell the government that they're mad. And so Black people who've been mad this whole time are showing up and doing what we've been doing this whole time. And all of a sudden, white guys are showing up too, and breaking windows and burning up Walmart and burning up Target. Yeah, there are people who show up to protest just so that they can find a bad opportunity. But there's a coordinated effort that's been undergirding this, and it's consistent with the entire history of the United States of America. And so when we look at right now, where you do have people, and this is way too long, but I'm hoping this is helping somebody. When you look right now, where 40 million people have been unemployed for 3 or 4 months, many of them don't have employment insurance yet, myself included. When you look at all these people who our system, it's not like we don't have enough food because they've had to throw away food because there's nobody to collect it, buy it, and process it. We've been throwing away produce, and it's been rotting in the fields because we can't get through it enough. It's not that we don't have a place to live. It's that we haven't stopped the systems and policies that would evict people in the middle of a pandemic. And so people are rightfully mad. And so if they see someone else break a window, or if they see someone else looting and they don't have enough, what's the reasoning that they won't go out and join and do the same? Why wouldn't people who have had their livelihoods threatened with no near ending in their sight, why would they go, oh, but that's so wrong? And I'm a nonviolent protester. I'm somebody who's been doing this for 20 years, but I understand that things don't get the way they are without having a history that undergirds it. And so, yeah, I don't like what it sounds like outside of my window right now. And I can't imagine what it's going to look like when I leave the house. I've been staying in because that's the best way that I feel like I can manage during this pandemic. But I know there's some horrendous things that are going to be out there, and we're not going to be all happy and go lucky, and it's not all going to go away quickly. But I really want us to have a hard look and an honest look at how we got here. The people who had the power months ago to prevent us from being unemployed and hungry and angry did not use their options that were in their hands. And then what we saw is that when people showed up to protest the brutality of police officers, how did municipalities respond? They did what they always do. They circled people. Right now in Chicago, they keep making these announcements of curfew 5 to 10 minutes before curfew hits. They shut down the bus services, and they made the announcement 10 minutes before the bus services would shut down. They say essential workers can still go to work, but how do essential workers who typically make minimum wage, how do they go to work when the city has shut down bus services? How are people supposed to do what they're quote unquote supposed to do if you keep taking everything away from them and not treating them like people who deserve information, like people who deserve to know how to do what they're supposed to do? And so I am angry. I'm angry not at the person who's carrying a TV that they stole out of a shop. I'm angry that the leaders of our government that we trusted and that we elected decided that people shouldn't have a way to stay home safely and have enough money and have enough food. I'm angry that we have had these kinds of issues with brutality and corruption for so long, and that we keep telling people, but not yet, but we're going to fix it later, and you just need to wait. You just need to keep on behaving. No, we have to do something. And again, while I would love to see us move forward in a different way and using different techniques, I'm very clear that this is not our fault. This is not something that we created ourselves. This is a reaction to the policies that we've had riots before. We have science and data about how riots form. We know that if people don't have food security, that a riot will come. They can predict it by the price of milk and by the price of bread, how close we are to a riot. There's a running calculator that can show you how ripe your neighborhood is for a riot based on people's access to food. And so again, what do? I want us to unite. I want us to learn how we can affect change. For some of us, that is voting. But it's also other things. It is showing up. It is continuing to protest. We have to stop conflating protest with looting. We have to stop conflating protest with white supremacists who are infiltrating. Those are separate people all showing up to the same place. We all have our own role. We all have the thing that we can do. Maybe you can donate to somebody who is working for justice. Maybe you can make sure that people have access to personal protective gear when they do go out. Maybe you can be somebody who's able to go pick up people when they find out the buses or the public transportation shut down. I don't know all the answers, but I know we all have something we can do. I know that this country didn't get the way it is overnight, and so it's not going to be changed overnight. But I know that if we messed it up the way it is, and by we, I mean as a collective, not as individuals, then we can fix it. We can do better. We can have a future. We can have a revolution. A revolution isn't just fixing what's been broken. It's an overhaul of the entire thing. And I strongly believe that we can do this. We can have a better world. I've been talking a long time. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Let me see. Tommy's asking, as a watchman in the community, what are your recommendations and next steps for mobilizing the people? We are online, and as long as you have access, I'm challenging my internet access tonight, but I still have it, and that's a privilege I have, so I'm going to use it. I'm going to continue making videos like this. I'm going to continue to give history and context, links and resources. Try to use your internet access as a way to resource people rather than just simply to vent anger. Yes, venting anger is important. But right now we all can be about the work of making sure people are moving toward something intentional. So when you post, when you comment, try to do with intention, right? I want us to support grassroots community organizers. If you're in Chicago, look up Black Youth Project 100, BYP 100. Look up Community Renewal Society if you're attached to a church. Look up GAPA, which is trying to do police reform in Chicago. If you are outside of Chicago, check out organizations like Showing Up for Racial Justice, which provides specifically anti-racism for white people, teaching other white people how to be anti-racist. There's books that you probably have heard about a million times, but still haven't picked up. Now's the time to pick them up, whether that's the new Jim Crow, if that's how to be an anti-racist, if it's, what's some of the other ones, Me and White Supremacy. These are all books that can help you figure out what your next steps are. If you're a movie person, watch 13th. It's on Netflix. I think you can even watch it if you don't have an account, but watch 13th. It shows you how our country started and takes you right up to our modern day and shows you how enslavement and injustice never ended. It just changed policy. We have to support each other. I would not be able to do this without the direct support I've had of people from everything, from people who have cooked and brought me a meal, to people who have donated financially, to the work that I do, to my band, to the ways that people have just held space for me and made sure that I'm okay and prayed for me. There's all kinds of ways that people show up. Somebody asked, yeah, I will. I'll put some more links in the description for this. This is 25 minutes and probably nobody will watch it later. But if you want, share this and make sure people know. People get a bigger picture of what's happening. Again, I don't have all the answers and I don't know when this is going to be over. But I do know that we can survive as long as we don't pretend like it's going to go away overnight, as long as we don't pretend like if we just make the right vote in November, it'll all be fixed. No, the same Democrats who've been not fighting Trump very well, and the same Republicans who keep saying, oh, we're against abortion, but they never have seen them actually do anything about it. They work together and they're both rich and they both serve the rich. We have to do what we can, and we can do it. I'm going to probably do a follow-up to this to show what revolution and what successes have been in other countries when it comes to changing how they function. So I will follow up with that. And yeah, like I said, I'll drop links as much as I can. Most of my info is on my page, yeah, again, thank you, everybody. I so appreciate you. If you have questions that I missed or something that I need to explain more for the next video that'll have like illustrations and be all nice and fancy, let me know. I'll try to get to those in the comments. If you have questions, I'll reply in the comments. But yeah, let's figure out our role, figure out what we can do, try something you've never tried before. We can be brave. We can stick together. The people united will never be defeated. And united doesn't mean we all agree on the same way forward, because we all have different roles. Some of us will be on the front lines. Some of us will be on the back lines, making sure folks are supported. Some of us will be making sure people have something to eat. Some of us will be doing childcare. There's something for everybody to do, but we can work together and we can get through this and we can rebuild and we can repair. Stuff can be replaced. People cannot. So let's do our work, y'all. Thank you for hanging out with me for 30 minutes. I love you. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.